The Doug Wright Show, where Utah news breaks on KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jay McFarland in for Doug Wright. Doug is traveling to Cleveland right now, where the 2016 Republican National Convention actually just started. The gavel just went down, and the invocation is going on right now. In fact, let's dip in. Let's see if we can hear some of that. This is a local rabbi.
May God bless you and keep you. May God shine his countenance upon you and be gracious to you. May God lift up his face to you and give you peace in a world of peace. And let us say amen.
The invocation from Rabbi Ari Wolf, invoking Psalms.
While the colors are retired.
The retirement of the colors now from the Cuyahoga Republican Veterans Association. And then the official business of this convention gets started. This is not the point.
ABC News, Aaron Katursky. Again, they're going to get the proceedings going there. And we're going to continue to monitor that. And, of course, Doug Wright out in Cleveland all week. So you'll want to stay tuned and listen to his show live for the rest of the week. We also heard screaming banner headlines today. And I did a, what? Prosecutors moving to dismiss all charges against former Utah Attorney General Mark Shurtleff. And I was very shocked by that. So to help us kind of understand what is going on, we wanted to bring in Dennis Romboy with the Deseret News. Dennis, I've seen, people saying defense asking for charges to be dismissed. But this is the prosecutors are saying. Are they saying, we changed our mind, we were wrong, my bad? What is going on here?
Well, one of the things the prosecutor said in this is sometimes for justice to be served, the prosecutor has to know when to pull back.
Okay.
And this is one of those times. They don't feel like there's the evidence that they need, especially from the federal government. As you recall, there were state and federal investigations into to Mark Shurtleff and John Swallow. And part of the difficulty for the prosecution is to be able to obtain all of this evidence from the federal investigation. They haven't been able to do that.
Okay. So just for pure lack of evidence, but we're also hearing that some of this is that the Attorney General participated in the investigation, actually wore a wire at some point?
Yeah, at some point. That was back in 2007, 2008. He wore a wire during some allegations regarding some people that he was prosecuting at the time.
Yeah.
The Attorney General's office. He also went to the FBI on a couple of occasions to talk about allegations against John Swallow made by, as you recall, Jeremy Johnson regarding Harry Reid and some payments that allegedly were made to end an investigation into Jeremy Johnson's internet marketing company. So all this stuff kind of gets rolled together, and it is very kind of convoluted and complex. But you have to
I don't get it. That's
Yeah.
why you're here, to help us kind of understand it. Because Shurtleff was facing felony-level corruption charges, accused of accepting gifts and donations from people facing investigation. Does it appear that he's going to walk away at this point?
It appears that he's going to walk away at this point. It's up to the judge to decide whether to dismiss the charges. Likely, she will do that when a prosecutor asks to drop a case. That's usually granted. There's also Shurtleff has also asked for this case to be dismissed because he says his speedy trial rights have been violated.
Right.
Also, there was a Supreme Court case recently that makes it more difficult to prosecute bribery charges on public officials. So his defense team has cited that, too, as a reason to pull back these charges.
I have to tell you, again, we're talking with Dennis Romboy with the Deseret News about these revelations that the prosecutors have moved to dismiss all charges against former Utah Attorney General Mark Shurtleff. It is surprising to me. I don't think we hear about this often when a prosecutor says, you know what, we're just going to drop the case. Typically what we hear, in fact, we had texters referencing Hillary Clinton's recent endeavors. We hear a prosecutor saying, look, there might be something going on here, but I don't have enough evidence, so I'm not going to file charges. This seems, is there going to be some backlash here with them saying now, oh, we don't have enough?
Yeah, I think there might be some backlash, especially I think the public perception is that Mark Shurtleff did something wrong.
Yeah.
Was that criminal or was that just unethical? And that's kind of been the debate.
Some people have a hard time distinguishing between the two, right?
Yeah, exactly. And especially in the public arena, if it's unethical, well then, man, that could be. I mean, they should be criminal too.
Right.
That goes to the soul of our system, right? Of our system of government. We trust our public servants to do what's correct and what's right. And when they don't, we want some justice for that, whether that's they're out of office or whether that's they should be criminally penalized and go to prison for that. That's kind of the dilemma there.
Yeah.
This prosecutor, Troy Rawlings from Davis County, has been very diligent about trying to obtain the evidence that he needs, but also he has an obligation to provide that to the defense. So they have an opportunity to go through that and put on the defense the best defense that they possibly can. And he's been very diligent about making sure that it's a fair proceeding. And I don't believe that he thinks he can go forward.
It almost sounds like they presented what they had to the defense, and the defense had come back and had been answering allegations, and the prosecution kind of said, that's a pretty good defense.
Actually, that's true.
Yeah,
I think they saw some things that the defense was raising and saying, man, we're going to have a hard time shooting that one down.
Yeah. So do you have a crystal ball here, Magic 8 Ball, any sense on what will happen with John Swallow? Do you think it's going to go in the same direction?
That's hard to predict. It doesn't seem like it. These cases were once together. They were merged. Now they've been split off. A lot of the allegations against John Swallow are different from the ones against Mark Shurtleff. Different types of evidence, different categories of crimes that need to be proven. I don't know that this have a lot of impact on the Swallow case.
All right. Thank you so much, Dennis Rumboy with the Deseret News, giving us some insight into this surprising news today that prosecutors have moved to dismiss all charges against former Utah Attorney General Mark Shurtleff. Coming up, we're going to talk with Greg Skordas and see if we can get a better understanding of the legality and the things behind this. Thank you so much, Dennis, for shedding some light on this.
No problem.
A fairly recent United States Supreme Court case regarding the former governor of Virginia named McDonald, who had a similar bribery case, and it was thrown out because the United States Supreme Court thought that the bribery and corruption statutes that Utah sort of follows and tracks a little bit were unconstitutionally vague, and I think Troy thought, at least on those 4 or 5 bribery counts, that he couldn't withhold the constitutional challenge. And then the rest came down to problems that he was having with the Justice Department and getting evidence, and the fact that there was no way he was going to get what the Shurtleff team needed to try this case.
It's very interesting. So is the former Attorney General going to be able to walk away and just say, see, I was completely innocent. I deserve all my credibility back. I deserve everything back that I lost in this process?
That's exactly what he's going to say, and I heard you say that he's going to be talking to Doug Wright later on in the week, and he's been pretty... I don't know what the right word is, adamant about his innocence, very, very outspoken about his innocence, always claiming he would not accept a plea bargain, he wasn't going to plead to misdemeanors. So I'm sure he's going to be pumping his chest and barking a lot in the next few days about how this has ruined his life and how difficult this has made it and how it should have never been brought and how he's completely innocent of everything.
And certainly his right to do so.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, he mounted a good defense. He had some very good lawyers. This case was tough. You recall way back in the day when the Salt Lake County District Attorneys, the Davis County Attorney's Office were both sort of jockeying over this case. Finally came out and filed it against Shurtleff and Swallow. Then maybe some disagreements about how to do it, and so they divided the case. Salt Lake still has the Swallow case, and they've indicated they're going full speed ahead. But Davis County, having been handed the Shurtleff case, said, no, we can't proceed. We can't win this case, and so there's no sense in dragging it on any longer.
We're talking with Greg Skordas about the revelations today that prosecutors are moving to dismiss all charges against former Utah Attorney General Mark Shurtleff. Greg, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on how this affects, or does it affect at all, the case against John Swallow?
Maybe two things, Jay. I think at the outset, Swallow and his team ought to be pretty excited about the notion that some of the counts here, and there are some duplicate counts, are being thrown out by a prosecutor because they can't proceed with them. So I think the Swallow team can say, look, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah.
You've already tossed bribery. But on the other hand, the Davis County Attorney's Office takes some pretty good shots at Swallow in their motion to dismiss, and among other people, they sort of toss him under the bus a little bit, making it seem that maybe he is the real bad guy in this thing, and that Shurtleff was a lesser player. So I think he can find some good and some bad in this motion. Overall, I think the Swallow team's got to be optimistic about their future based on what's happening today on the Shurtleff case.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Greg Skordas, thank you so much for joining us today as we're trying to figure out, kind of wrap our brains around what has happened. I was very surprised. Other people, not so much. Prosecutors moved to dismiss all charges against former Utah Attorney General Mark Shurtleff. Again, Mark Shurtleff is going to speak to Doug Wright live on his program later this week. I know they've already had a phone conversation. My understanding is that Mark Shurtleff is going to wait for the judge to rule here, and all indications are that the judge will listen to the prosecutors, because if the prosecutors are saying, we don't have a case, why would the judge say, no, you have to continue to fight that? So we'll continue to follow that here on KSL News Radio. I also want to remind you to download the new KSL News Radio app. Go to the App Store, Android or iPhone, search for KSL Radio. It's a DVR for the station, so you can listen on your schedule. That's what I love. So if you missed Doug's program, if you missed my program, you can go back, see what we talked about, and you can listen on your schedule. Same with Brian and Amanda in the morning, Scott and Maria in the afternoon, the Nightside Project. It's free. Download it in the App Store, KSL News Radio, and also instant traffic alerts, the most recent alert. So it's very cool. Brought to you by our friends at the Utah Honda dealers. We want to thank them for their support on that.